For those that are on already, thank you for joining us this evening. Do you see any more, Judy?
I think you're good to go.
All right. Well, we'll call this public hearing to order then at 5:03 p.m. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening to listen to our presentation on the proposed water and sewer rate changes. At this time, I am going to share my screen for a little presentation that we've put together here. Okay. So, quickly. So why the rate increases that you received? You should have received a note in the mail, but also we've sent it out via email. It's been posted to the website. It's been out through social media. As it stated in the flyer, you know, the primary purpose of this is the rise in the cost of services and maintenance to operate, repair, or replace the town of Woodstock's aging water and sewer infrastructure. Unfortunately, these repairs and services are exceeding the revenues that have been generated from the water and sewer departments over the last several years. For the last few years, we've received notes of deficiency from the auditors and have been told that these funds need to be self-sustaining funds. Our rate structure is below average and must be modified to properly fund each of these departments. When looking at surrounding towns that charge for water and sewer, currently Woodstock is in the very bottom half of those towns for utility rates. We want to be sure that we're in a position in the future to continue or to actually apply and receive free money. These increases would enable us to apply and receive enhancement grants through agencies like the Northern Border Regional Commission and the USDA Rural Development. Currently, we don't qualify for any of these type of grants because we do not charge enough to cover any of our current expenses. So this next slide, I'm going to it shows you since 2015. As I stated earlier, the expenses that are tied to the water department in this slide will show you that they have not been covering the annual, or the revenues have not been covering the annual expenses for at least the last 5 years. The blue column represents water revenues. The orange column represents the expense. I'm going to take questions at the end, by the way. So on this next slide is how we came to calculate these rates. We started with the usage from the 2020 report. We found on the 2020 report that we have approximately 999 residential users. We have 101 commercial users. The residential usage for 2020 was over 25 million gallons. So when you take that 25 million gallons and divide it by the number of users, residential users, the 999, you get the average gallons per residential user of approximately 25,380. So we use that 25,000 for our calculation and creating a base rate. And then also the cost to make 1,000 gallons of water for $5 or 0.005 cents per gallon. So up top here, you'll see the billable gallons for residents, the billable commercial gallons. You take that, multiply it by, or divide that by 1,000, and then multiply it by the $5, and you get the total revenue to be raised by households or by the users per gallon is $257,380. Our expected water department expenses for this coming year is $484,000. So the revenue difference needed to be generated by a fixed rate cost for residents and commercial users is $26,619. So taking that, that's how we kind of worked down through this, this next set of information on connections. So taking the 999 residential connections at $150 would bring this. And then we have some commercial connections that use the same or virtually the same as a residential connection. So taking that $25,000 that we talked about over here as like our average household for the base rate. So any commercial businesses that were at that same residential level of 25,000 or less, we also considered them to be at the 150. And then the commercial businesses you'll find thereafter all go up in increments of 50,000. So this one here, so it would be double, I mean, 4 times, because up to 100,000 gallons would be 4 times the base rate of the residential or level 1 commercial. And the math is the same all the way down through. It tells you over here the number of commercial connections for each of those, and then the total amount that would be generated from those base rates, bringing us to revenue to be raised by these base rates of $229,650, which brings us just over $3,000 in surplus for the water rates, covering our expenses necessary of $484,000. On this next slide, we have the sewer department annual revenues and expenses dating back to, again, 2015. And you can see here, again, the blue is the sewer revenues and the orange is the sewer expenses. You can see in this slide that the revenues for the sewer have never, or the expenses for the sewer have always exceeded the revenues that have been taken in for the sewer department. So calculation of the residential and commercial base rates for sewer. We have 898 residential users of sewer, and we have 75 commercial users of sewer. We use the same calculation method as the water, just to be consistent. And you'll also see, obviously, the numbers here are different from the water. So we have about 13 less users to work with when forming the base rates than we did with the water. So taking the residential gallons of sewer going out and commercial gallons of sewer going out to the plant, multiplying or dividing that by 1,000 and multiplying that by 5, we get the total revenue to be raised per gallon of $151,600. The expected, oops, snafu, that should say sewer department expenses, my apologies. It is expected in 2021 to be $425,000. So the revenue difference to be needed to be generated by a fixed rate cost is $273,399. So taking that number to figure out a base rate, we came to $200 as the base rate for sewer. Commercial, we put that up a little bit at $250, and then all the rest of these are generated by being 4 times as much, 6 times as much, 8 times as much, all the way down through to bring us down to the bottom of the revenue to be raised by base rates of $286,100. You'll find that that is a bit higher by about 13,000. And that is because we have absolutely no surplus in the sewer fund right now to cover any emergency expenses that the capital reserves could not cover. So a quick, on the flyer that went out to you folks and what was on the website, you saw a combined sample of the water and sewer rates together, showing you what the annual cost would be and then we had made a recommendation, or we had said that we were going to go to quarterly billing. So what we've done here is we just broke it out a little bit further for you. So you can see that, the residential water use, what was billed, and it's just a sampling of families in different types of households and then different types of businesses for the town of Woodstock. So this young family was billed in 2020 to $216. Proposed amount based off the new rates would increase them to about $375, bringing their quarterly bill amount to a total of $93.75 per quarter. So this amount right here will be billed 4 times a year to cover this proposed annual amount of this. So instead of being semi-annual like we've done in the past and having to take what, $162.50 each half of the year, it'll be half that at $93.75. And so similarly all the way down through, you'll see it's pretty balanced between young families, middle-aged couples, senior citizens. On average, it was flat. 4 adults in a home, single adult, senior citizen couple, and then the quarter share of condos and apartments. Businesses, a little bit more of a hit than what they've been in the past, but their draw is, in this situation, their draw is 4 times as much. And so what they were billed in the past was extremely low. What we're proposing for moving forward is based off that rate, and then they would too also be billed quarterly. The same breakdown over here for the sewer. I don't feel like I need to go down through it all since it's been on the screen for you folks to look at. Again, sewer and water would both be billed quarterly. And this, I put this slide up also just to let you know that beyond just changing the rates for users, that the rates back prior to 2020, at the end of 2019, early 2020, we changed the rate structure for tap fees. They were extremely low leading into or in prior years. And so we've now taken a standard from the USDA, and those rates, increase in tap fees will also help offset expenses and future expenses in capital reserve, or the need for large investments in the capital reserves to repair and maintain our aging infrastructure. This rate structure here, along with the unit design flow figures, can all be found on the website at woodstocknh.org. And then that is all I got. So Scott, Gil, do either of you have anything you'd like to add before we open it up to questions?
I'd just like to say, this is a painful thing, but unfortunately it is more for me because my bill goes up 1,500%. But the trouble is, the rates haven't been increased in over 10 or 12 years. And it's just gotten so far behind that I don't think there's much choice, unfortunately.
And keep in mind, it's not like we have a choice.
No, I think it's the right thing to do. And it makes us, a lot more self-sufficient. I think the users are paying for the service and not everyone in town. And also it makes us eligible for more grants and things like that. So as we go along. So I think we're just facing reality here, I think is what it is.
I'd add too that these rates can also, for some users, no one user or household is going to have the same, some are going to be a little affected more than others, especially as we saw with the businesses a bit. But also, if there's ways to be more conservative with water, then your monthly or your quarterly bill, water bill will go down, or sewer bill will go down also.
And I gotta say, when we're looking at this, there's a chart that you can get from the state that lists every water and sewer department in the state. And even at these rates, we're still in the bottom, probably 50% of the state as far as rates go. It's not outrageous. It seems outrageous because we haven't charged enough for so long, but it's unfortunately time. So.
I think, I think we did try to do our best to create rates that we'd be able to justify. We've always had questions as to, well, why is it that much? And we've never really had a formula that we kind of went by. So we've created this formula. So when, folks ask, we could justify, it's equitable across all users. And like, as Scott just said, it fulfills our requirements to make these funds and these departments self-sustainable. All right. Well, if there's no other comments here, I will open it up to questions.
Robert McAfee, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Making this self-sustainable and knowing that we've been utilizing funds from many non-users for many, many years to pay for buildings and facilities and whatnot, then we have to assume based on that the town, as it is said in the past, owns those facilities. So we're now talking about the water department, a water department that is going to bond and buy those from the town to reimburse all the non-users from previous years.
No.
No, if I understand you correctly, you're asking.
So you have been using non-user funds, and this is specifically to be set up for users to pay for.
We have not. There's been a surplus in the department that has covered the deficits up until now, and now we are up against the wall as far as there's no surplus or very limited surplus left to cover these expenses.
The town actually, Bob, has been using the water department surplus as a slush fund, so they don't have to borrow tax anticipation notes every year for the last 10 years because there was so much of a surplus built up until 5 years ago when the town started dipping into that, when we had to start dipping into the surplus. But the town basically has been borrowing money for free for the last 20 years.
And my next question is the 25,000 gallons a year that's being used. I just Googled it, and they're saying the average family of 4 uses 12,000 gallons a month. So I'm curious where you came up with the 25,000, because that would equate to 69 gallons a day.
That's exactly what our users use. The engineer figured it out. So
Right.
a national average is about 50,000, 60,000, and he was surprised that ours was so low, but his feeling was in second homes and so forth. It ends up being that our usage is about 25,000 gallons a year. I'm sorry, for household.
If you, on this slide right here, Robert, if you look, when we took and we pulled the usage report from 2020 and we took the 999 residential users right here, we took their gallons from spring when it was the meters were red, and fall when the meters were red, and added them together for all 999 users. It shows that our residential users used 25 million gallons this past year.
So how many total gallons are you accounting for? Because I believe Mike Donahue had mentioned a much higher gallon usage than was accounted for.
We are currently working on fixing water issues that we've come across in the last couple of years. As far as looking for missing water, some of it has been some of the major water breaks that we've had over the last year or two, accounts for some of it. We have arranged to have the town, to have a company come in and do a townwide leak detection. Hopefully we're looking to have that done over the summer or this fall. And that includes doing some spot check on some of the meters to make sure that the meters on households and businesses are accurately transmitting flow also. We also made changes this past year and started reading the meters in the wells on the same schedule versus opposite schedules to see if that has anything to do with why our readings are off. So we're certainly making efforts. You know, I was looking back at past billings, and in the past we were billing somewhere around 20,000. 20% of our usage. In 2019, we were up to 27% of the usage, and in 2020, we've gotten ourselves up to 40% of the usage. So we're gaining every year. You know, ultimately, hopefully in the next year, we'll be able to get that number up even higher and get it under control.
The goal is to get up to 85%.
Right. You do have a lot of that. Municipality stuff doesn't get billed. Don't forget. Fire hydrants don't get billed when we flush fire hydrants, town buildings. So is there another question from another user? Mr. Donahue.
How you doing, Cheryl?
Well, thank you.
I'd like to thank you for all your effort you've put into this. I've been watching, as you know, closely, and I think you're doing a good job. I don't want to be negative here, and appreciate your work. But like Rob just mentioned, I'll use 2019 for a year to work with, just because I got all those records. I think we billed for 41 million. Let's round numbers. Let's say 41 million. The well put out 131 million. The chart you just showed on your revenue was for 2020. I think it was around 52 million that you actually billed the customers. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I think the wells actually, you actually treated and distributed somewhere around 150 million gallons. And as you know, before you were a selectman, you sat there in the audience and heard me talk about this multiple times, because I've been trying to figure it out. And I think I understand why you got to get the money end of it straightened out. I believe in what you're doing, but I think more effort needs to be put into finding the problem. A typical water system should only have a loss of 6 to 8%. Scott just said you're hoping to get to 82. You're only at 40 something. We got a major problem. Whether it's meters, I don't know what the problem is, but more effort I feel needs to be put to finding where's the other 2/3 of the water going. It's costing you electricity, chemicals, everything else to distribute it. And that's, so if you could figure that out, the rate per gallon that you're going to be charging people, should go down 2/3 roughly. We're very fortunate in Woodstock. We have a great water system. Every town would die to have what we have. But I think the selectmen need to put more effort into trying to find out what the problem is, not just trying to tax, add more bills to people to cover, all we're doing is covering it. We're not.
Mike, well, we're honest. I totally agree with you 100%. It's the most frustrating thing.
Well, and I know that, Scott, you've seen me in front of you when you were on the board, and prior to you being on the board, I was there talking about this. And I guess what's frustrating to me, and like you guys finally acknowledging, it's been 15 years, but you've always told me we're not running in a deficit. I'd come in with the audit, show you. And the powers to be would sit there and try to tell me we're not running in a deficit. Well, and believe me, it's about time, and I'm not trying to criticize you here. Don't take me wrong, Scott, but I think more effort needs to be put into solving the problem instead of just upping the rates.
Mike and I have met with numerous people over the last 2 to 3 months. We've done a lot. They're doing a lot of research. We're in the middle of a lot of things right now. Mike, I pay more for water than anybody but the Ice Castle. If anybody wants my rates,
but you're using it, Scott.
I know that. I want this water system.
Whoa, one at a time.
No, I'm just saying, I want the water system to be as efficient as possible, but I got to tell you, Mike and everybody is working on this the last 4 months unbelievably. And we've had the state involved in the last 2 months. We've had meetings with the state water system people, and they think it's outrageous how much water we're losing too. And they
Yes.
think it's
And
ridiculous.
I'm gonna be honest with you, it's frustrating for me, Scott. I feel all I'm getting is lip service. Couple months ago, I brought it up again to you and you told, oh, no, Penachuk came in, they checked all our leak detection. They didn't do a complete leak detection. I mean, that was just something to tell me to shut me up. And I've been listening to all the workshops and you keep complaining about, well, your bill's going up. But Scott, you're using the water. You know, of course your bill's gonna go up.
Of course it is.
Sure.
I know that.
But
I think,
I
like
mean-
I just said, like I spoke earlier, I did say we have somebody, not Penachuk, an outside company that
Right, and
we've
that's
contacted to
something
come
new.
in and do
That's
the leak.
just- Right, and that's just finally happening now, Cheryl. Right, and that's
Well,
good.
no,
That's okay.
It's been on the books. We just haven't talked about it. And I'm sorry that it has not been brought forth in a workshop.
Well, if you
so-
go back in your minutes, it was only a month and a half ago when I asked, and I was told that Penachuk did a leak detection. There was no problems, so it ain't that old.
Okay. Fair enough.
And I guess my next question is, and I understand, I'm not trying to be critical of what you guys are doing, but sometimes there's just way too much to be done. I get that. Are we at a point where the water and sewer needs to be its own entity and run by a board of commissioners or something who can put time into this, to have more experience in this field of expertise? Because, and I'm not picking on you, but it seems like you guys have been struggling to get through this. And it needs to be addressed. And you are addressing it, I get it, but you need to be finding the loss of the water more than adjusting the rates to fit what you're losing. I'll stop for now. And
Thank you.
Appreciate your input.
No. It's a very frustrating thing. It's
Yeah.
super.
But you know what? We're working at it and we're working towards it, and you need money to pay for things like that too. Mr. McAfee, I see you unmuted again.
I was just thinking what Mike was saying, and that kind of makes a lot of sense to have a separate board and separate it out from the town, because then that will ensure that it is being responsible for itself and dealing with its own revenue and cost issues.
That is something that we can certainly revisit once we work towards what we're doing right now and see what type of answers we do or don't get.
Well, I would imagine
And
that
then maybe we can maybe reconsider it. Let's see, let's give something a chance to work, you know? Any other comments or questions? No, well, being none, we have a workshop that we have scheduled for Thursday of this week at 1 p.m. You're welcome to listen in. We do not accept any public participation at that point, but then we will have another public hearing and selectmen's meeting, I believe on the 15th at 5 p.m. Stay tuned, as it may be a virtual or in-person hybrid model. So we will get that out to folks as soon as we know.
Cheryl, can I ask one more
Yes.
question? All the
Yes,
charts,
sir.
all the charts that you presented at the beginning of this, are they going to be posted somewhere where we can actually get copies of them?
Sure.
That presentation that you had, because
Yep, it'll be posted with the public hearing page, just as
Oh.
it was during virtual town meeting.
thank you.
Sure. Anything else? Oh, very good. Thank you to those that came out tonight. And in the meantime, if you have any questions between the end of this week and next week's meeting, feel free to email them to admin@woodstocknh.org, and we will do our best to have answers for you in Tuesday's meeting. So, thank you all again.
Thanks.
Do I have
everybody.
a motion to close the public hearing at 5:32 PM? Oh,
Bill
looks like
made it.
Bill
I'll
said so.
second it.
Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very good. Have a great night, everyone. Stay safe.